Colleagues, I rise today to speak on the inquiry to the final report of the Canadian Youth Climate Assembly. I want to sincerely thank Senator Coyle for launching this important inquiry. Many of you may remember gathering in these chambers on a Sunday last September with 33 young Canadians from across the country, crafting practical recommendations for federal climate policy. They called on Parliament to act pragmatically to develop solutions on the issues that they identified to benefit Canada's climate and economy of the future. Since that time, I have had the opportunity to speak with Terry and Mohammed, two of the participants from Saskatchewan, about their experience. What stood out was not only their appreciation for being a part of the process, but also the seriousness in which they approached the responsibility of representing their generation's future. I want to start by highlighting one of the themes of the Assembly that hits home as a resident of Saskatchewan. The Assembly urged governments to bolster community resilience against climate impacts that we know are already occurring and to better prepare for climate risks like wildfires, flooding, and other extreme weather events. I want to note that these youth clearly appreciate the human dimension of climate impacts and the need to expand mental health supports for Canadians experiencing climate-related distress and trauma that we see all too often following flooding, fires, and often in the agricultural sector when climate negatively impacts production. The Student Assembly also called to accelerate a clean energy transition, moving toward renewable energy production while tying any remaining support for fossil fuels to emission targets, to strengthen climate accountability with strong standards and mechanisms to track climate progress and show measurable results and clear reporting on progress, and to elevate youth and Indigenous voices with meaningful ongoing engagement in climate decision-making and respect for Indigenous leadership in land stewardship. When I spoke with the representatives from Saskatchewan who participated in the Assembly, one message came through very clearly. They understand the realities of Canada's economy, and they understand that provinces like Saskatchewan play a vital role as resource producers. They were clear that transitioning toward renewable energy and new technologies should not mean people losing their livelihoods or communities being left behind. Rather, a focus on new technologies for energy production and resource extraction that can support new, well-paying jobs in a future-focused economy to strengthen Canada's long-term economic resilience should be prioritized. The choice doesn't have to be the environment or the economy, it must be both. This brings me to the importance of connecting these themes to Saskatchewan. Saskatchewan occupies a unique position in Canada's climate and economic landscape. Our province is anchored in agriculture, energy production, and mining. These sectors are central to our economy and identity, but they are also directly affected by changing climate conditions. Farmers across the province are already experiencing shifts in precipitation patterns that affect crops and growing seasons. Wildfire smoke from across Western Canada has increasingly affected air quality in our communities, and rural municipalities face ongoing challenges related to the extreme weather events and being able to access markets. For Saskatchewan youth, these challenges directly impact their future. They affect the farms, towns, and families that shape daily life in our province. The Assembly's emphasis on resilience, therefore, resonates strongly. Preparing communities for climate risks through improved infrastructure, stronger emergency planning, or community adaptation strategies is a practical step that benefits everyone. I would like to recognize as an example the efforts of the City of Saskatoon in developing its flood control strategy. This initiative identified 9 of the most flood-prone areas in the city and supports infrastructure improvements designed to improve drainage and redirect water away from homes that have experienced persistent flooding in the past. And continuing a municipal theme, the Senators for Climate Solutions recently heard from former Montreal Mayor Valerie Plante and the similar work that Montreal has also undertaken to adapt city infrastructure to better be able to hold high volumes of water and redirect it from flooding people's homes and businesses. These projects demonstrate how practical investments in climate resilience can directly protect livelihoods, pocketbooks, and mental health. These are practical solutions that have real benefits for residents. The Assembly's recommendations on clean energy also connect to Saskatchewan's economic future. Terry and Mohammed did not frame the discussion as a choice between energy jobs and environmental responsibility. Instead, they spoke about economic diversification and developing new opportunities in traditional resource-intensive industries through improved technologies that can make advancements to reduce emissions in oil, gas, mining, and agriculture. In other words, the transition they envision is well-planned and focused on creating opportunities for the next generation. And as an example, I've had the chance to learn more about the Michelvena Bay project from some of Foran's team, which you may remember as one of the major projects from the first round of announcements. This includes their goal of becoming Canada's first net zero copper mine using things like hydroelectricity, electric vehicles, and a state-of-the-art tailings storage facility and paste backfill operation that will reduce their carbon footprint and greatly reduce environmental impact. Agriculture in particular was also highlighted as an area where Saskatchewan can contribute positively to climate solutions. Terry, who comes from, it's 7 o'clock.
Sorry to interrupt. We still have a few items on the order paper, but it is, Honourable Senators, it is now 7 o'clock, and pursuant to Rule 3-31, I am obliged to leave the chair until 8 o'clock, when we will resume unless it is your wish, Honourable Senators, to not see the clock. Is it agreed to not see the clock?
Agreed.
So ordered. Senator Muggli.
Terry, who comes from a farming background, was clear in mentioning existing practices being used in Saskatchewan, such as crop rotation, improved soil management, and reduced chemical inputs, which strengthen soil health, increase resilience to changing weather conditions, and support long-term farm sustainability. Practices being developed and used in Saskatchewan place our province not only as a leader in Canada, but globally in sustainable farming practices that result in lower carbon footprints in production of crops, which has been backed by a study from the Global Institute for Food Security at the University of Saskatchewan. These are approaches that many farmers in Saskatchewan already implement, and they demonstrate how environmental stewardship and agricultural productivity can work hand in hand. The call from the Youth Assembly for stronger accountability also reflects something that we hear often from young Canadians. They want clarity. They want to know that governments are setting realistic targets and following through on commitments. When I mentioned some of the studies the AgFo Committee has undertaken, such as our now infamous soil study, thanks to Senator Black and the AgFo Committee, the soon-to-be-released wildfire study, and the current food security study, Mohammed was surprised and grateful to know that some of their priorities are being actively explored. This, however, demonstrates a clear issue. If younger generations who view climate action as a priority are unaware of the work of the federal government is doing, how would the general population know about it? How can they participate or contribute toward what other areas of focus may be needed? Canada needs to develop more efficient ways to reach the public and engage with our interested stakeholders. Mohammed emphasized that people need clear and understandable information about climate initiatives, data, and progress that's being made. Whether it's farmers looking at new agricultural practices, communities considering adaptation strategies, or students wanting to understand energy policy. Making data and information available and engagement accessible allows more Canadians to participate in developing and implementing solutions. Colleagues, the Canadian Youth Assembly, Climate Assembly reminds us that climate action must be both ambitious and grounded in practicality. The young Canadians who participated in this process are not simply calling for change. They are actively offering ideas and want to contribute to the implementation of policies that will shape the country that they will inherit. Importantly, youth from Saskatchewan share that perspective. For our province, responding to these ideas means continuing to invest in resilient communities, supporting sustainable agriculture and resource strategies, and ensuring that engagement around climate policy includes voices from across our regions, both rural and urban. The message from Saskatchewan youth is clear. Climate action is not about choosing between the environment and the economy. It is about building a future where both thrive together. Thank you. Merci. Miigwech. Marcy.